Matty Fresh on the track up at State. And I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate, Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Zillin in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and ballin' like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
All right, and welcome back in. I know we're a little late in the week here to be doing a recap and a preview, but I said we weren't going to spend a lot of time on these games this early in the season, just with how everyone's schedule has been. So I'm just going to fit in a quick one, give you something on these two games. So we're going to do that now, but I'm going to take a look quick at Penn State's 46-11 win over Nevada last week. I'll try to make this bigger. There we go. So what to draw from this game? Not a lot in the grand scheme of things. It was nice to see Drew Aller and his new receivers, Hudson and Pena, have a nice connection going. So Hudson goes for 689 and a touchdown, and Pena 7 for 74. I will preface this with the fact that, look, the first game of the season in 2023, Malik McClain, DeAndre Lambert-Smith had big games through the air, and then last year Trey Wallace had a big game through the air on the first game of the season. And we saw how that went with the receivers as those two seasons went on. We're going to hope this maintains itself better than those two situations did. I think it might. I hope it does. But going to take it with a grain of salt. But obviously them having a good start is a lot better than a bad start. So we're going to leave that at that. With the run game, a little disappointed with what I saw from the offensive line. I thought they left a little bit to be desired. And I know, look, they're shaking off the rust, and they're getting used to Donko playing guard. So some things going on there. Kitchener Island, decent day with 5.4 yards per carry and a touchdown. Singleton had 2 touchdowns, but 2.4 yards per carry from him and Alonga 6. Yeah. Overall, 3.8 yards per carry. I mean, come on. Against Nevada, I needed to see a little more there. And look, this week coming up, we're going to get in this FIU game. They're going to have to give you more because weather might not be great. You got to get a little more on the ground. So that was a little bit of a concern. Defense overall, first team defense gave 3 points, kind of what you expected. I will say, I'm going to draw a conclusion from this game. It is that Dennis Sutton is the second most valuable player on this team behind Drew Aller. We cannot win anything without Drew Aller. I don't think we can win much more without Dennis Sutton, because what I saw from the rest of that defensive end group was not great. Now, Zariah Fisher did not play, dealing with some injuries, so wisely held him out against Nevada. I get that. Look, maybe it looks a little better with him, but Coleman, Harvey, Malachi Williams wasn't great. First two did not record a tackle. Malachi Williams had 1 tackle, and it might have been on special teams. I'm not really sure, but he had 1 tackle. So that's a little concerning to see. Want to see a little more out of them. Now, look, they're young. They don't have a lot of experience. Them getting this experience was big. Them having this glorified preseason for the next 2 weeks in the bye week to get more experience is big. But from what I saw, Dennis Sutton looks like he's in it to win it this season, be the best defense man in the country, as he once tweeted and pinned to his account. But the rest of that group, you got to see something. Look, we know that they're shorthanded. He lost the Min Vanover and obviously Bill Carter to the NFL. He lost Max Granville to injury. You know, you didn't have Jameel Lyons because of his situation. Gone forever, his own fault. But this group is shorthanded. It doesn't help that Zariah Fisher is still coming off some injuries. So you got to see some more from these guys. But my overall thought was, yeah, I'm a little worried about that group. Wanted to see a little more against a team like Nevada. Liked what I saw from DDS. The rest of them scared me a little bit. But overall, thought defense was pretty good. They weren't really tested all that much. I mean, Shepard Purdy barely threw the ball. They were scared about DDS. And when he did throw the ball, it's not pretty. That interception he threw to St. Durant was one of the ugliest throws I've ever seen. But look, they utilized him in the run game. 14 carries. He was their most effective rusher. And part of that was because these young defensive ends were having problems holding contain, and he was breaking contain and, had a couple chunk plays, including a 22-yarder there, as you can see. So yeah, that wasn't fun to watch in that aspect, but overall, look, 46-11. You made all your field goals. You got a long kick return from King Mack. There were a couple times in the red zone, on the long return and the interception, Penn State settled for field goals. Didn't like that, and part of it was the offensive line did not play good, including a bad snap from Nick Dawkins. So a couple things from the offensive line I'd like to see cleaned up going forward, and I'd like to see these young defensive ends continue to improve. But other than that, you can't take too much away from it, but those were my main takeaways. So let's move on to the FIU game coming up this week. So noon start, rainy game. It's going to be sleepy. Let's be honest. I don't think the student section is going to be as filled as they were at 3:30 last week. And, before I get into it, I just want to say, thought the renovations were going well. The standing room beer area they added, which is the area that used to be where the lower West Bowl met the upper, which is now separated. They turned that in like a railing, something you can kind of see at a baseball game in their standing room sections, which I'm a fan of. I like to do standing room baseball games. So I thought it was a cool view. I thought the seating was nice. So something I think about checking out, but I know it's a little expensive, and it was sold out actually already for the course of the season, I'm pretty sure they said. So might not get in there, but I thought that was a cool little feature they added. And the temporary bleachers that everyone was so afraid of, I thought they looked pretty good. Look, they brought in the company that does the waste management open bleacher seating around the 16th, par 16, the 16th hole, which is, they call it the stadium hole. So, those guys do a hell of a job out there. I assume they were going to do a good job here, and I think they did. So a couple other things to kind of cut down on beer lines. They got roving beer carts now in the lower concourse, so they're doing a lot of things better. Prices definitely went up, but I thought overall the overall product in terms of stadium and the amenities were a lot better. So that was good to see. There's still a couple troughs there too, which was interesting. But enough on that. Let's talk about FIU. FIU coming off a win over Bethune Cookman, a 42-9 victory. So good for them. This team's probably really bad. Penn State, the money line would probably be off if they played them. But we're going to draw some conclusions. Let's draw them. Sure, let's do it. So, I don't know. The backup was a little more efficient than the starter throwing the ball for FIU. They did the majority of their work on the ground, 6 touchdowns, almost 6 yards per carry. Penn State, as I mentioned, wasn't really tested too much either way on the ground or through the air last week. So they'll get a little more tested from a team that looks like they want to run the ball and in rainy, sloppy conditions. So obviously they're going to want to do that anyway. So just something to keep an eye on. We'll see how those young defensive linemen, including the D tackles in this case, do against a team that's going to want to run the ball. On the flip side, they didn't give up that many yards overall, but the starting running back for Bethune Cookman, I'm going to stop trying to say this as much as possible, but he went for 9 for 76, which is an 8.4 average. And then I guess Ollie Scott's his backup. Sure, he went for 5 for 29, which is a 5.8 average. Everything else in there was BS with kind of the quarterbacks and stuff. So, sacks are included in that. But from a running back standpoint, they actually rattled off some chunks. So going to see how that goes. Hopefully Singleton and Allen have a better game. The offensive line has to have a better game for that to be the case, as we know. But I think they have a chance to gash FIU at times this week. FIU, they got 22 catches for 233 yards in this game. As you can see, how many guys caught a ball? Almost more than 15? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 guys caught a ball. That's a lot. Really spaced it out. I don't think they'll be testing Penn State's corners all that much. Bethune Cookman, a couple of receivers had decent games. You got Javon Ross here, 6 for 109. So we'll see if Hudson Pena or R. Ross can replicate that. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as well. On the defensive side of things, they got 2 sacks and 6 TFLs against Bethune Cookman. Not crazy numbers, so I'd like to see the offensive line keep Drew Aller upright. I think they will. So, yeah, not much I can take away from this. I mean, these are 2 bad teams playing, and one was just better than the other. In terms of this, just comes down to things I want to see Penn State do better, and that's run the ball. That's young defensive linemen, keep contained, make a play. Those are the 2 main things. You'd like to see Drew Aller keep that rhythm he had with his new receivers going. I know it's going to be a little more difficult if the weather is what the forecast says it's going to be, which is rain. It rains a lot in Florida, so I'm not going to sit here and say that FIU can't play in that. They're immune to that too. So even though they're coming up north, rain is something that Floridians are used to. Not going to make that a huge factor, I don't think. But yeah, want to see him keep something going with them. Want to see the tight ends get a little more involved. They were not big players in this game. Actually, Andrew Rappley, shout out to him, playing his first ball since tearing his ACL early last season, 3 for 33, and most of that was in garbage time in the second half. But nice to see him get a little something going this past week. Also, shout out to Cam Wallace, coming back from a double broken leg injury, which is insane. Happened on the same play. Just devastating. But here we are, 12 months later, 12 months and some less than 12 months actually, because I think it happened the second or third week of the season. So a little less than 12 months ago, he breaks both legs, and he hurt a little guy wearing a 26 jersey of all jerseys this past weekend. So shout out to him coming back from injury too. Great to see those 2 guys back out there. Adds even more depth to what is a pretty solid defensive group. So nice to see them out there. Sariah Fisher was limited, did not play, holding him back, and Devontae Ross was limited. So, and Quinton Martin also held out due to some banged up injuries. So it's good to see they're being conservative with these guys. There's no reason to rush into anything against Nevada, the first game of the season. But at the same time, we want to see these guys get into some rhythm, get the rust off in this glorified preseason before Oregon, because you go from 0 to 100 real quick here. So I want to make sure everyone is on the same page. It's good to be conservative with guys that are banged up. Look, you're hoping to play 16, 17 games this season. We're not really worried about what it necessarily looks like against Nevada and FIU, but at the same time, want to get these guys ready to go, because you don't ease into Big Ten play at all. Yes, it's home. Yes, it's the whiteout, but it's Oregon. You got to be ready to go. But back to this game, because I totally went on a tangent there and lost my train of thought, which is going to happen when I do these by myself from time to time, because I can't get those guys bothered with these types of games. But I'm not really expecting Penn State to cover again. Well, the reason why they didn't cover last week was for the second straight year, we ran a 2-point conversion play on a point after in the first game of the season. Did that against West Virginia too, and it blew up. This one also blew up. I don't know. They're just trying something, I guess. But we're not covering because of that. And then Nevada did come down and score a touchdown with 2-point conversion to give us the wonky 46-11 score. So did not cover. Line is very similar this week. I'll pull this up, but I think it's 42.5. Again, I don't see Penn State covering this again, mostly because of the weather, and I think they're going to protect these starters again, so they'll be out early. I'm looking at something like 38-7, 42-10, somewhere in that range, 41-7, somewhere in there. I don't think Penn State will, hammer anything home, try to run up the score, especially if the conditions are bad. Look, you got to win. Last week, yes, you played Nevada. There's a lot of good teams that did not get a win last week. Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, Clemson. a lot of good teams lost because, yes, they played good teams. So, just winning is all you're really worried about right now with this 12-team playoff. Style points don't matter as much as wins do. So you're just trying to rattle off as many wins as possible, protect these guys, get in and out, get a good offensive rhythm going, let these young defensive guys learn on the job because you're going to need them to. If Zariah Fisher plays or not, you're still going to need the Malachi Williams, the Yvonne, God, his last name's slipping my mind right now, but him, Coleman, Harvey. You're going to need these guys over the course of, if you're hopefully playing 16, 17 games. So want to get them in, get some experience, want to keep everything else kind of as it was. Want to get the tight ends a little more involved early, I'd say. And I think a game like this where the downfield passing game is not going to be a huge thing if it is raining, just dump it off, get these big bodies involved, let them rumble down the field. I don't know FIU has the dudes to tackle the likes of Dinkins, Reynolds, and Rapollet. So I'd like to see them just get some yards after the catch, watch them run over a couple guys. That'll be nice. So, I don't think this will be a big day for the receivers, which I know it's going to bum some people out because we just want to see the Penn State receivers now. But I want to see them run the ball. I want to see the tight ends get involved in the passing game. I want to see them be physical on offense, use that offensive line, get up big, control the clock. And on the flip side, don't let FIU try to make this game as short as possible in this bad weather by running the ball because, that's what they want to do anyway. They don't want to play it. They don't want to drop back 3 straight times and, interception, strip sack, or 3 straight incompletions, and all of a sudden Penn State has the ball back after 50 seconds. So want to see these young defensive linemen get in there, stop the run. Want to see Amari Campbell keep doing what he was doing, led the team in tackles last week. Tony Rojas had a couple TFLs. So want to see those guys keep doing what they're doing. But overall, you're just looking to stay healthy because you are limited at some spots. So you want to keep your stars protected, get in, get out, get the win, keep this preseason, if you want to call it that, going. But that's all I'm looking forward to in this game. Just keep getting better, keep shaking the rust off, and we'll be back next week to maybe talk about this game a little bit, talk about Villanova. If the weather's better for Villanova, we'll talk about maybe what we see more in the passing game. But for right now, I'm looking for Singleton Allen to take over our first half, get in, get out, have some fun. So we'll be back next week. If we're not, that means this team had the upset of the century, and I don't want to talk about this team anymore. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But we'll be back next week, maybe a little more extended talk, but we'll be back next week to talk about this and the Villanova